and Rey fighting there.
Yes, isn't it amazing?
Yeah, did I pick that up for you at Comic-Con?
I think I was circling the line and you saw me circle the line, and then because I think I got you something.
Oh, six I bought? Oh, good.
Yeah. And that's the point where it was great because Hasbro rings up in Rhode Island, and I had told everybody that I was in San Diego with my bank, and so my bank froze my card.
That's always
all
nice.
right. We are live on the internet now officially. So hi internet. So today for our panel, we have some members of the 501st Legion themselves. First, we have Jason, and he is a high school teacher in South San Jose. His wife, his daughter, and himself are all members of the 501st Legion and the Rebel Legion. He's the head of the PR for the Golden Gate Garrison, and he oversees all the Garrison social media posts and questions from the public. Jen, would you like to give your bio?
Yeah, I'm the Endor-based commanding officer. My job is working for basically making sure that people have adult beverages in stores. And I'm also now base command liaison, which means I talk from the head of the Rebel Legion to all of the other base and outpost commanding officers. I'm also in the Golden Gate Garrison just as a regular person, and I am in Saber Guild as well. And I've been doing this for about 3.5 years now. It's been a fun and wild ride.
All right, and it's all yours.
All right, let me get our slide up here, and we'll get that going. All right.
Oh, and sorry, just 1 second. We wanted to thank the Friends Foundation of the library for supporting this event and making it possible. You may have used to go to our Friends of the Library book sales that were the third Saturday of every month. Obviously, during this time, we cannot have book sales anymore. However, they have switched over to selling their books on Amazon. So if you are interested in getting books and supporting the library, you can head to lovethelibrary.org and you can purchase from them, or their monetary donations as well make programs like this possible. They supported all of our programs today. So thank you so much to them. And without further ado.
Awesome. Can we see, are everybody good? Can we see the screen? Can we see the slides? Awesome. Well, so hey, Jen and I, thank you for those awesome introductions, and hello everybody, welcome. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're staying warm, a little chilly out there. We are gonna talk to you about costuming and trooping and all that stuff, but we wanted to start just with sort of a little bit about us. And so I'm going to just ask you, Jen, I want to know where did Star Wars start for you, right? Where was this born originally for you?
When I was 10 and my dad was like, watch Star Wars. And I said, okay. Because I mean, I grew up watching, like we would watch Star Trek Next Generation during dinner if it was on. So we were doing all those things together, and finally he's like, let's watch Star Wars, and I was hooked ever since. Like, tried to make a costume for a Barbie. It turned out poorly. But what about you? When did everything start for you?
Yeah, for me, like I always loved the movies as a kid, and so I was born in '81, so I just sort of missed all of it. But for me, and it sort of fits that this is a library, it started with the books. When I was in 4th grade, I got my first Star Wars hardcover book from my dad, and that's where it was. I kept reading. I still read all. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Did you read the Young Jedi books too? Because I devoured those.
I did. I've even read those with my daughter. Those came a little bit later, just when I started reading, but Heir to the Empire and the old Timothy Zahn stuff. But that was where my imagination was really born from it. And I used to love putting buckets on my head and coloring my wrapping paper tubes and all that good stuff. Do you have a favorite character in your favorite movie, Jen?
My favorite movie is very controversial because it's The Last Jedi. I can probably watch that almost every day. I've been really having to stop myself from watching it recently. And then I remember in 2015 at WonderCon, my best friend asked me, like, point blank, as I was dressed as a character from a completely different series, who my favorite character of all time was. And I just said Princess Leia, like without missing a beat. And right now it's very much a toss-up between Princess Leia and Rey, because they're both very strong female characters. And Rey is everything I ever wanted that I sort of got in the Young Jedi books with Jaina, which is a
Yeah.
girl and gets to use a lightsaber and the Force and doesn't take anything from anyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned Jaina from the old novels. If anyone has read those, she in the novels was Han and Leia's daughter. She's probably my second favorite character of all time. My favorite is another book character, Mara Jade. I named my little girl after her. I got Mara here on the shelf. And you took Last Jedi. Last Jedi is up there for me. I think my favorite, other than Empire, which I think everyone says, my favorite's probably Rogue One. I really like the grittiness of Rogue One, which is I think maybe also a little controversial.
And I mean, that's coming back with Andor coming up. So
I know. So excited for that. I love K2. He's my boy. How did you get into costuming?
I started actually with the Legend of Korra. Completely, utterly had not sewn really anything except for 3 weeks in middle school, and decided to make a shirt from a 2XL tank top with sleeve, or not tank top, like long sleeve shirt, and made it into the Korra tank top to go to New York City Comic Con and meet the creators of The Legend of Korra and Avatar. And then it just kept going. And there are so many pictures of like the progression of my Jakku Ray from okay to being Rebel Legion approved. But what got you into it? Because it's been everything for me.
Yeah, my wife and I met some members of the various costuming groups at a Giants game, and we threw this charity party, and some of them came to the party in costume, and she was like, "We should do this," and I was like, "Yeah, we should do this," and that was about 7 years ago, and it took us about a year and a half, 2 years to sort of get it all together and get it going because we'd never done costumes or anything. But that was about 5 years ago, and now we all troop and we're in a couple of the groups, and it's been a really awesome experience.
Yeah.
And I think we should talk about that costuming.
Yeah.
If there are questions from folks, I know I can see the chat. I haven't seen anything on the Q&A, but if you guys have questions, I'm a high school teacher, so this is sort of my life right now, is like, hey, give me questions. So if you have thoughts, things you want to ask us, please feel free. We're here to talk with you. We're here to teach you guys. So let us know if there's anything. But let's Vikram, I see your hand raised. Do you want to type your question? I don't know if we can see. I don't know if I'm not seeing it.
I'm trying to see if there's a chat.
I have not seen it as well, but feel free to type it in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer whatever your question is, Vikram.
But I really appreciate you raising your hand. That we really appreciate that. But yeah, feel free to type it. You can put it right there. But let's get on it. So we've talked a little about who we are. There we are right there. There's Jen. Jen is very commonly seen as one of the various Rays. There she is at a couple of events. And I have one costume. Vikram's R2D2. What a classic character, Vikram. That is a good call, Vikram. That's a real good call. And I have one costume. Which is that's what I do. I'm in both groups with the same costume, and I wear black. I'm a big clone trooper. So
I mean, I get to wear black now too as Kylo Ren.
That's right. It's fun. We look really cool in that. Hey, so Jen, I was wondering, what are the Legions?
So the Legions are, as you can see, international Star Wars costuming charity organizations. So they're all about costuming, charity, and community. So we have to be able to be in the Legions. You create or buy, either one, a screen accurate Star Wars costume. That means you can be something generic like a stormtrooper or a TIE pilot or an X-Wing pilot or a Jedi in your own color scheme within very specific colors, or any other soldiers. We also include what are called base characters, which would be Rey, Leia, Vader, Boba Fett, Han Solo, and then there's Chewbacca, which is stilts and latching of hair and really amazing to see. And then members give back to their communities by participating in charitable events, as well as appearing at conventions and at like baseball games, or the San Jose Sharks. So if you see the Star Wars characters at those events, that's us. But we'll also show up at like your school fundraiser or at a Star Wars Reads Day at a local library if they decide to have that. It's all the different types of events. And we also do Relay for Life or the Pan Can Stride Walk, and it all is focused a lot on charity. And we'll raise money for charities, or we'll have like donations for appearances at certain types of events. Not all of them, certain ones.
Absolutely. Now, so you mentioned face characters, right? And so those are those people that are those icons, right? So I didn't intentionally leave Ray out here. I apologize for that, but I knew we'd talk about her. But like for me, I'm not. I'm just, well, I am technically a named character, but I'm in a mask. I get to stand in the back and look intimidating. For you though, like you show up as Ray, you show up as Princess Leia. I mean, for every fan, you're one of the favorites. For for especially the new fans, Ray is the star. Like, how do you prepare to represent somebody like that when you're out in public?
It's funny because I've been thinking about this for a while, because it actually also got asked in online. I'm part of the Ray cosplay community as well, and it was a question recently there. And I don't know if I mentally prepare, other than I just try to think like, okay, this is who you're representing. And then I know what I do is I think on my feet for answering questions like, where's BB-8? BB-8 is with Poe, or in the Falcon with Chewie. Where's Luke Skywalker? And it depends. That depends on what costume I'm wearing. So if I'm in Jakku Ray, I'm like, well, he's just a myth. I don't know where he is. If I'm in Resistance Ray or Training Ray, so those are with Luke Skywalker, I'll be like, he's on Octo. He's watching the Porgs for me. Battle Ray is like, I left him on Octo. I don't know what he's doing. Or, and then I've gotten the Rise of Skywalker approved, but never done it. So I don't really know how to answer that question now. Cause I'm like, gone?
Yeah. Right. You don't want to remind them of that. That's awesome. And I always think about that because as someone who has stood there for a lot of that, I'm always impressed with you and the other costumers answering those things in character, coming up with those things. Or even for us, it's like, we got to go. Why? Like Darth Vader needs us. And it's a really nice thing to be able to do because, if you're like, sorry, we got to go because I need a drink of water, that's not so Star Warsy. But if Darth Vader needs you, they get out of your way, right? Like no one wants to keep Darth Vader waiting like that. Nothing good happens there.
And especially if like there's an Emperor Palpatine there, like that's actually a really good way to get people like, okay, he can say something like, and now we have to go to the Star Destroyer. And then you all follow him out and it's just a nice exit.
Absolutely. You mentioned all these rays. Do you have a favorite of the various rays?
I like Battle Ray, which is the Praetorian Guard fight one, which also just because it has the easiest hair to do.
Oh, I don't ever have to worry about that. Nice thing about having a helmet is I don't have to worry about my hair. I think my favorite Ray is first scene Ray with the goggles and the wrap, like, because I remember my daughter sitting with me the first time she saw that trailer, and like I'll never forget that. And again, if you guys have any questions, Star Wars Clone Wars Season 7 was so good, right? We gotta love our clones. We gotta love our clones. He's not here, but one of our base members, Mateo, just got approved as Hunter. We have a Hunter in the Endor base, which is really cool.
And he's probably very willing to show up next year at Santa Clara Library Con.
That's right. We'll have to get a whole bunch of clones. We'll make a note. We'll get clones there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, cool. Let's keep on trucking here.
And then.
Oh, sorry, I skipped one. So we talked a little bit about sort of being a member, and you talked about the Korra cosplay community, and these costume groups are a little funky because there's rules. There's lots of rules and standards, and they come from, we are sort of getting to play in this Star Wars world. Lucasfilm and Disney basically allow us to do this, but we have to behave. We have to look right. We have to act right, like you said. Ray won't be out of character when kids see her. Darth Vader's not gonna, like boop a kid's nose or whack somebody with a lightsaber. Like we have to be good and professional. And so there are some standards and things to get into these groups. So if you are interested in any of these, the general process is obviously you have to have a costume. You have to have a screen accurate or reference accurate for a costume that may not have been on a screen technically. And then there's these huge lists for each club. Got to be 18. Although if you are a parent of a child, like my daughter is not 18, she's 7, there's some groups for those kids. And so they sort of become extensions of us. We can watch them, but if your parents are in the groups, you can be in it. So if kids are watching and you really want to do this, well, cool. Help mom and dad build a costume, turn mom into a stormtrooper, turn dad into Chewbacca, and then you can be whoever you want. My daughter is an off-world Jawa from The Mandalorian. You could all be clones. You could be Boba Fett at various ages. You could be, get them involved.
Tiny Imperial officer.
Little tiny, that'd be great. Little tiny Imperial officer, and the parents are the stormtroopers. That'd be pretty great. When you do these things, you get your costume all ready. You take a whole bunch of reference photos. I think my last costume application, I think, had 22 reference photos. Some of them were like of my feet and of like the underside of my gloves. And then there's websites for both of these. You guys have probably seen them. And then you go through an approval process. You wait for them to compare it to the reference points. You wait for them to get back to you. Sometimes it's people outside of your area. Sometimes it's local people. And then once you do, you troop. You go to cool events. You go to libraries. You go to school parties. Like, hey, there's John. Hello, John. John troops with the kids. John has so many costumes. Speaking of clones, maybe John will clone up for us next year at the library. I'm gonna hold you to that, John.
Yes.
And we get to have fun together. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of goes into it, but it's a lot of fun. There we go. All right, we're doing it. We're gonna have clones next year at the library. That's a promise.
Jason, you mentioned the approval process. So what was your approval process like in the 501st?
Yeah. So the approval process that we go through, you take all these photos and you send it. It's a lot of clones. You know your clones, man. You totally know your clones. Do you have any commandos listed in there? Got to get our commandos listed in. That's me. Yeah, the approval process for me took 7 attempts, and we'll talk a little bit in the slideshow about what that really means. It took me 7 tries. I kept getting it brought back to me for flaws, for things that weren't screen accurate, and there was definitely moments that were trying. They're definitely challenging moments. But every time I went through it, and the guy that I went through was really helpful. He was our garrisons group that did it. Well, every time I went through it, my costume looked better. And my wife, who was always taking my pictures and helping, we'd get frustrated and be like, oh, we got to fix that little thing again and take a whole new set of photos. But then we would, and we'd look at the pictures and be like, yeah, it does look better. Like, oh yeah, like that does sit better. That piece is sitting better. That piece is angled more correctly. Like it's a long process, but it's really worth it, because then, like you said, when we go out to these big events, that you look right. That you look like what kids see in their heads. Not just kids, let's be honest. You look like what people see in their heads, the video game characters they played, the toys that are on their shelves. And that's a really important part, is sort of playing in that imagination for people. Commander Rex, right? Isaac, we love him. We love Commander Rex. He's our favorite. Let's talk about some of the pieces of that armor, shall we? Or pieces of those costumes.
Because while Rey is all the Jedi, maybe you just want to be a generic Jedi, which we also have a picture of Pat showing off her really awesome Jedi in this. So hi, Pat.
Pat's in there somewhere. Hi, Pat.
Yeah. And the cool thing about this is you'll see the parts are the inner tunic and outer tunic, tabards, obi, which is a belt, and then you have your actual belt over it, food capsules, converter clip for your lightsaber, a lightsaber itself, pants or skirt, boots, and your robe is entirely optional. Now you're just like, I don't know how to make this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I am going, when it reopens, to Disneyland, to Galaxy's Edge. Can I just buy that? Yes, you can. There's a few little modifications, but the Jedi robes from Galaxy's Edge are entirely approvable in the Rebel Legion, and I believe maybe in Saber Guild. I am not 100% sure. And as you can see, you don't have to do like the browns and tans. You can have some maroon. You can do an all black Jedi. You can be a purple Jedi. We have one of those in the base.
Yeah.
Pat also made an orange Jedi.
I was going to say, Pat, you're here. How many Jedi costumes? You should tell us in the chat. You have a lot of Jedi costumes. And then actually, I wanted we have a question in the chat there. 11 Jedi costumes.
11.
Christine asks, once you're in, what is the amount of time you would expect to spend going to events and giving back to your community? So to maintain membership, you have to do one event a year. And typically our events, you're probably going to be suited up and going for roughly 2 hours. It sort of depends on the event. If we do something like a Giants game, those are a lot longer days because you get there, there's a lot more organization, there's a lot more people, a lot more moving parts. If you're at something like Santa Clara Library Comic-Con in a year that's not the pandemic, you can be there all day.
Yeah.
Or you show up for 2 hours. You show up and do some table duty. There's plenty of people out there who sort of have like the charity or the group that they really love, and that's the one they get up for every year. That's the one that they go all out for every year. So it sort of varies. I know, Jen, you troop a lot more than I do. How many troops would you say you do a year, Jen?
I think I got up to pre-pandemic, I did 60 or 70 in a year, which, and you have to work that out. Like I was going during the week, I was doing 2 or 3 a weekend. I would do like 2 or 3 in a day on May the 4th, which is usually our biggest day, or whatever the Saturday is after that. I did 5 events, and wow. I will never do that again.
That's a lot of time in costume.
Yeah, and by the time I got to the last one, I was really tired, and I mean, it was really good. It was really great. I did a bunch of really good events. I actually went to another San Jose library that day. I did a couple comic book stores. And then like ended it with a Saber Guild performance. So that was pretty cool. I don't think I will ever do that again.
So I want to ask you, you've talked about Saber Guild a little bit. So obviously Rey has a lightsaber, Rey has a staff, Rey fights, right? You talked about that amazing battle in Last Jedi. She has some iconic battles in other movies. Do you have to prepare for that? Like, do you know those moves? You know those fights? How does that work for you?
So for Rebel Legion, you don't have to do any of that. You just have to be able to stand there, hold a lightsaber if you're a Jedi, and look cool. If you are like an Endor trooper, so they're in the camo and everything, you can have a prop blaster and you can pose with that, or anything you really want. For Saber Guild, yeah, there's practices and there's routines. I actually I refound the whole routine for the throne room fight, so I can figure out how to do it as I'm motioning with my left hand, because I actually am more comfortable with the saber left-handed. And it's a lot of memorization, but it's fun. You don't have to do it. Some people have learned the spins. I know our Anakin and Obi-Wan are really learning the Obi-Annie spins.
Yes.
They do that, and they're getting really good at it. At some point, I'm sure they will learn the whole Mustafar fight.
I can only hope. I can only hope that they do that.
Yes.
I will say, like, I've trooped with you literally your entire trooping career.
Yeah.
But you've always had the Rey move down really, really well. It's always been really accurate.
And I mean, since we've had this question about trooping, like I literally followed you in to my first troop.
That's right. I remember you had your lightsaber was still in a box. And I was like, I think you're in the right place. Just follow me. And I'd never been there either, but I think that's one of the great parts about this community is you just see the person there and you take them under your wing, whoever they are, and then later they do the same and just sort of goes from there. There's a couple other costume pieces on here that you should touch on, because there's so much more that goes into being a Jedi than just a pair of robes and a lightsaber.
So your belt is pretty important. You can either have it in brown or in black, and they're going to be the same color as your boots. So make sure that if you get a brown belt, that your boots are also brown. You're going to have pouches that should also be the same color. And then the little food capsules, which you can also buy at Disneyland or on Amazon. The converter clip, as you can see, or a D-ring, so that way you can put your lightsaber, if you can make it just a hilt, onto your belt. And then you have a robe or cloak, which is entirely optional, but it is really great for dramatic effects to fling off your robe. And then you have to have at least a lightsaber hilt or a lightsaber that does light up. It does not require to have sound. You can have sound. And then you can do, for Rebel Legion, all the colors except for red, which does mean you can do orange and you can do yellow. You can do blue, green, purple, white. It's just all up to you. And you can even get one that changes color. So there are some lightsabers that do change color if you find them. And then you can do different color lightsabers depending on how you feel that day.
Or whatever the mood lightsaber is a very popular one. And it's interesting. So you talk about sort of the standards, the rules, right? No red lightsabers for the rebels. And there are a lot, like you talked about, there are a lot of standards. One of the great things about Star Wars is so much of it and so much thought was put into making these things look Star Warsy, making these things look, we say futuristic, but it's supposed to be a long time ago, but, making them look like they're from this other universe. And doing that is really the big challenge, and getting these things right is that big challenge. And so if you guys look at the slide here, both of the groups keep incredibly extensive resources. They're sort of referred to as the costume reference libraries, CRLs. And so if you're thinking of ever doing a costume, you first want to figure out who you're doing. I knew when I started doing this, when I started costuming originally, I did a costume for another group to sort of learn how to do it all. And I loved it. It was great. It was an amazing process. Hey, Mateo, I think if you just type in your question, that's the easiest way. Thank you for raising your hand. But if you want to just type in your question for us. How many people participate in the Bay Area? So there are, I think there's something like 170 members of the Golden Gate Garrison. I don't know about Endor.
Endor is about 130. The last I checked, a little over that. But I just found out the other day because Endor base used to cover Alaska. So it probably is going to decrease by 5 because Alaska is now officially their own outpost.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's something that you can see. What will happen is potentially, it's not going to happen here, but the local base might change because it's broken off from somebody else.
Absolutely. And a lot of those people are overlapping folks, right? A lot of the Rebel Legion is the 501st Legion and vice versa. And then members are Saber Guild, and there's Mandos, and there's droid builders that are in there as well. But when we're busy, especially like towards the end of the year, if there's a Star Wars movie coming out, we'll have events where there's 50 or 60 people. Some of the sporting events, some of the Sharks games are usually some of our largest groups because they have a huge room that they set us up in. And so I've been to troops or Silicon Valley Comic-Con where there's 40 or 50 people in armor at one time, or in costume at one time, which is really cool. And it sort of varies. People change jobs and they have to take a little bit of time off. People have kids or are building a new costume. It varies, but
and also if it's during the week, people have to work, so you might not be able to make it. I actually live in the East Bay, but I go do a lot of events in South Bay, San Jose area. So during the week, I would love to be able to go down and troop, but traffic and my actual job will prevent me.
Yeah, that's always challenging. Like I'm a teacher, so in the summer I can do some of those things, go to school events and things. Mateo, I did see you raise your hand. If you have a question, feel free to type it in. We can answer it, and we'll keep talking about all this stuff. But if you are finding a costume, like for me, I really wanted to be. I actually have a little toy of him. I wanted to be a Republic Commando, specifically an Omega Squad Republic Commando from a book called Republic Commando. And so the nice thing is you can just Google that. You type it in, I showed it right there. You can see all the things that go into that armor, all the things that go into that costume, how thick the layers of color, or how thick the bands of color, and what color blue, and if it's shiny or matte, and if all of the details are there in just extensive lists. And so you just go through, and that's your checklist, and you just find those things. And then when you get ready to take those photos, you just make sure everything matches, right? Is this thing half an inch above this? Is the band here, are they quarter inches every, and then there's 6 of them. Is it 2 red lights or 2 blue lights? Does one of them blink or not? There's all these details. And the Rebel Legion has a similar setup, and they've got photo references, and you just go through it piece by piece. It's like building a big model airplane, but then you have to go inside it, which is not usually what you do with model airplanes. It's a really, really incredible process, and it teaches you so much, and you learn so many weird skills and get to be creative, and you have to be persistent, and it's nuts. And we're going to show you some photos of some of that process as we go through here. Speaking of which.
Yeah. So the cool thing with Rey specifically is there are a lot of pieces that translate to multiple different costumes. So you get these boots from Pozu that are actually not going to be in existence anymore. And so we have a question that right now about where you find parts for clones, and that's actually going to be coming up in a little bit. We're going to talk all about that, Mateo. But there's also tutorials of how to make those boots. But the great thing is once you get them, and say you're trying to do Jakku Rey first, they're there. You can then move on to Training Rey, which is just the white top and the pants. And then you can move on to the full Resistance Rey, and you still just have one pair of boots that are going throughout that. So that's one less thing you have to figure out, buy, or make. Same thing with the bandages on the arms. They're the same for Battle Rey, for Training Rey, and for Jakku, just different stages of leathering. And they're actually literally that brand. They're Boots, which is a pharmacy chain in the UK. Cotton crepe bandages, that's what they used. It's great if you can find people that can go and get them for you. And then what I do is I take them out, kind of mash them around a little bit, and then put eyeshadow on them to weather. And I need to re-weather mine, but it's easy to do that. Some people use acrylic paint, and that way you have them for all 3. You don't have to really worry about getting more. The same thing with the belt for Jakku is also Resistance and Resistance and Training. Battle is a different belt. And then Rise of Skywalker is completely different from all of these, so you have to buy a whole new costume.
That's good meaning. So a couple questions come in. How many costumes have I done? So I've done 2. I wear one currently. I did a full suit of Mandalorian armor, and I do my clone armor. But I've helped build a bunch. I've helped do a bunch of helmets for people, which I'm going to show some photos of. I've helped lots of people build things. My wife has done a couple suits, and she's helped me, and I've helped her. And then Haley, I saw you asked a question. You can, if you want to just type it in. You can pop it right there, or you can have your dad text me if you need. For everybody raising their hands, we can't see that. So if you just type in questions, we will get to them. And honestly, folks, if you guys want to ask questions, we can just answer whatever. That's whatever you want to get out of this. Whatever we can teach you is totally what we're here for. One thing I want to add, which is really cool, is one of the great things about Star Wars is when they were making all these costumes and making all these different things, they often did use little pieces from a dentist tools kit and all these weird little pieces of calculators and things. And so people are able to go back and find those and use the same little greeblies that they use, which are really, really cool.
Sometimes you have costumes and there's stuff like this in the 501st that literally it's just one thing changed, completely different costume. So Princess Leia, as you can see, wears the white dress with the belt and the boots for the entirety of the majority of A New Hope, with the big bun hair, which is done with 2 extensions. And sometimes that doesn't work. The good thing in the Rebel Legion is they say, at the end of Empire Strikes Back, Leia puts back on the dress and does one big bun on the top of her head. And that's a whole other costume approval. So when you're having a bad 2-bun day, you can do the 1 bun. It's 1 dress, 2 approvals. And the same thing, with my TIE Reserve, I just have to add a couple things to the belt, and I have a whole other costume approval. Haven't done it yet, but it's a great way to start if you do base costumes, especially also with a Jedi. You can just change your tabards, whole costume approval.
Absolutely. So Isaac asked, can you do Commander Rex? Absolutely. Commander Rex is a really popular costume. There's actually, if you use Instagram, there are some great Rex costumers out there. He's very popular. Obviously, he's the star of the Clone Wars. But there's lots of awesome Rexes, and that's another example, as Jen was just saying, of a costume where there's a couple different versions. There's also some things where you can swap out some parts with Rex. But yeah, there's some great Rexes. A lot of our friends that are clones live inland a little bit in the Central Valley. There's a bunch of clones over there, just all sorts of different colors. And we've had a couple times they did a Clone Wars movie screening at a school one year. And so a couple of us made the trip up there. So we had a big, huge group of clones. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, if you guys have clone questions, that's why I'm here. Talking about dyeing things.
Yeah. So dyeing is one skill that I completely and utterly learned. And I'm sorry, I forgot to close something out on my computer. And now I really need to figure out how to do that.
While you do that, I'm going to answer this question. As Jim, or this observation, as Jim says, jumpsuit and the jack boots, those black military boots, especially in the 501st, there's a couple jumpsuits and boot combinations that if you get that done, there's like 4 or 5 costumes that you can make from that, which is a really good way to start.
All right, I'm back. So dyeing, the best part about it is you will mess up and then you'll find things that you didn't even know. The other thing to really think about, and you can kind of see, especially with Battle Ray, is the fabrics that I actually have lying down in the pictures with the whole different dye swatch is the same one of her vest. Like we fit, everybody found out that that's what it is, and went and bought it from Mood Fabrics to the point where they've done a rerun. But because of that, you can see how many different like color corrections are going on in that photo, because those two don't look alike at all. So you have to find a bunch of reference photos, then do your dye test, figure out if your synthetic dye is going to work on a natural fiber like wool. It might not. And then you do different tests to go with everything, because you just want to make sure that you're getting the right undertones. Like with Resistance Ray, it's a gray with a brown undertone. So do you do a tea dye and then you do your gray, or do you dye gray first and then you do the tea dye over it? And it's a whole process. Everybody that I've talked to on the forums, in Facebook communities, super helpful. And it's a new skill that you can learn, because now I know like natural fibers take better with certain natural dyes, and that RIT dye is great, but will sometimes be splotchy.
It's funny you mentioned that. I think you were one of the people. So a friend of mine who was a duck hunter, needed to dye like bamboo leaves or something for a blind. And I was like, let me ask my friends. And I asked my costumer friends, and they were like, oh yeah, if you're doing it on leaves, you use this. Like it was such a funny moment of these things blending together. So people ask about clones, and I can talk about that a little bit. So the way most of the armor suits work, clones, stormtroopers, anything like that, typically you find there's a number of different makers around. Most of them are not they're not major companies. You get people who have basically learned the craft of casting resin or pulling plastic on a thermopole. And you buy the kits. And so in my case, like I said, I do Republic Commando. So you can see in that photo, that's what it comes like. It looks like model parts. You buy sort of who you want, and then you buy the individual customized pieces for them. And then it's sort of like putting together that plastic airplane. You trim it and you smooth it, and you shim it together with plastic and lots of glue. And then the one thing that's different is the helmets, and I have my helmet here. The helmets, because they are so iconic, they are so precise, and often because they're so round and spherical and things, most of those are made of cast resin. So they actually are made in molds so that you get those awesome details there. So they tend to be like, you can buy sort of larger helmets and they're smaller helmets. But then you get all the pieces together, you sort of figure out what needs to go where. and then you start putting it together. You trim pieces of plastic to join them. You use lots of clamps and lots of glue. I use this 2-part epoxy. I call it Plasti-Weld because it makes that plastic stick forever. And you glue it and you shim it and you tape it and you clamp things together. And then you have to fill all the little spots. You have to sand it smooth and fill in all those little tiny microscopic holes. And then you sand it and you hit it with a layer of paint and you notice there's one little tiny microscopic hole. So you re-sand it and refill it. And it's just this amazing bit of perfection is needed. And you work through that, and you get it all so it's nice and smooth and it's finally ready to go. And then you get to paint it. And the irony is I really like spray painting. I really like using color. But I picked a costume that is black. I picked a stealth commando that is just black on black on black on more black. And so you paint it all, and then you get to do the really fun stuff. And you can see this on some of my helmets, but you get to like scratch the helmet and damage the helmet a little bit, and you hit it with some sandpaper to give it that weathering look, that little bit of life. Like Jen was saying, the stain, the sort of the dirt on the robes and the scratches on the armor. That's what makes it real for people. That's what makes it, it takes it from I'm a toy to I'm a person. Like I'm a real thing. And so you get to do it. You get to scratch things, and you sort of imagine like, okay, I do have quite a collection of spray paint. That's true. I have a very, very extensive collection of Rust-Oleum spray paint specifically. But like for me, like, okay, I'm like, okay, I would block a hit right here. So on that piece of the armor, it got some scratches, and my wife's old suit of armor had like a lightsaber slash across a couple panels, and she had a similar slash on her helmet. Like you get to think about all those weathering details, which really is some of the most fun parts, because it's when you weather it and you scratch it and then you wipe it clean, it suddenly looks real. It suddenly looks like it's been damaged, and it's really cool. And I really like and this, like, again, if you guys have questions, please let us know. I wanted to show you some of the armor process. I want to show you guys helmets, a little bit of what goes into that. So I did, like I said, I have my regular, this is like my actual trooping helmet, but I love my commandos. And so 2 years ago, when Clone Wars Season 7 was announced and the Ahsoka style helmet was shown, or on the posters at least, I had an extra commando helmet. And so I painted it and did all the taping of all the detail tattoo lines. And then you spray it real good and scratch it up and make it look like that. It was a lot of fun. It was actually a pretty quick build too, and put the lights in the helmet like mine has. So some really fun things you can do, and some really great moments where I couldn't troop in this because it's not like there was no Ahsoka commando, but it's a fun thing to have and to wear. And I've worn it to Comic-Cons and other events and things. It's a lot of fun.
The outside looks really cool, but what does the inside look like? Because I mean,
oh, that's a good question. So the inside, it's actually pretty cushy. So I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, yeah, you can. So I got pads in there. I've got helmet padding, and the helmet pads it's replacement padding you can buy. Various like sports retailers have it. Amazon, obviously, Amazon has everything. But if you're trying not to order from Amazon, their helmet pads, replacements for military helmets or airsoft helmets. There's also, if you guys have in your garages, bike helmet inserts, those thin fabric or thin padding with a little adhesive backing. Those are really great. And just because everyone always asks, there's a fan in there right there. There's a little laptop fan that runs on a battery. And so when I turn it on and get air circulating in there, it mostly keeps it from fogging, but it does keep it, we'll say, cooler, right? Like it's a cool day in Florida inside my helmet instead of a hot day in Florida. But yeah, they're really nice. And some people put, like, I've seen people with football helmet padding in there. Some people have their little mic setups in there. I don't usually talk a whole lot when I'm in my armor. But the big thing is the padding, and it's removable, Velcro's in, so you can wash it after hot days, which is really important. I'm always so jealous of folks like you that get to show their faces. I know it's pressure because you gotta look like Raid every moment, but there's some times where it'd be nice to be able to breathe.
it's oddly less pressure for me to be Rey than I think it's going to be for me to actually fully be able to troop in Kylo.
You got to do that walk if you're Kylo. You got to do the I'm angry at a First Order officer walk. That's a tough one.
I know the walk. It's more, that's my first helmet, so I've never, like, and I can't even put a fan in it. I've tried. It doesn't work. So
It's
I'm
a different
nervous about the limited vision and the, like, I can't talk because I don't have a voice changer.
Yeah. You'll like it. Helmets are fun. So I'm going to show you guys, speaking of helmets, another helmet project that I did for another Rebel Legion member who's also my uncle, incidentally. But if you guys have questions, since we are nearing the end of our hour, feel free to type them in. We'll gladly answer them. I'm not going to talk about every photo on here, but I wanted to show you guys, you know, Jen talked about her references and really like, and this is the teacher in me, doing these costumes takes homework, takes a lot of studying. So my uncle wanted this Ezra helmet. I think it's season 3. I don't quite remember, but it's Ezra's scout helmet that that Sabine painted for him. And so before I even started, well, after I ordered the pieces for it, I just started collecting photos. And there's my camera album that I have there. And it's just every time it was on screen, we found an actual like art test image that showed where the colors were. And it just took a lot of studying of like, okay, where's this go? What color is this? Is this a different yellow than that one? Because there's so many different colors on there. And then you get it just like on the other armor, you get it as these plastic pieces and you join them. And then you got to sand the joints really, really clean and really, really smooth because it has to look like one piece. And then you get to tape it all up. And the Ezra helmets are a lot of fun because if you've watched Rebels, which hopefully you have, because it's awesome. If you watch Rebels, Sabine is an artist, right? In addition to being a Mandalorian and an explosives expert, right? She's an artist. And so her painting is really intricate, which apparently she just does with just an airbrush and no stencils. I don't know how that works, but you tape it all up and I use lots of newspaper to block things. And I would just sit at night, like watching TV, just taping up these patterns and these stripes and these things. I made my own decals. I needed a decal and I didn't have them. And so my wife had a Cricut machine from school. And so I was like, well, I can just make what I need. So I made my own stencil or my own decal for it. But it was all just these references. Thankfully, that was online. People had already made that image. So I just printed off of that. And you go through it. And then the coolest part, I think the coolest part of doing something like this is you get to do what's called a wash. Some people call them black washes if it's black. The animated ones I do are a lot of gray washes. And John, if you're still a John knows gray wash, and John's got some nice animated clone armor that has that. But I let my daughter do it, and you just mix up. It's just about half and half gray acrylic and water, and you just blop it on there with a big paintbrush and let it soak in and stain a little bit, and then you just wipe it off, with just paper towels. I used an old t-shirt, but it gives it like just that grime, that grunge, that like, you know, he's been on desert planets and it's been in dirt and it's been rained on and, you know, blasted and carbon scored and all those things. And the cool thing is it picks up all those little scratches. So like if you do a little cut on it, the color is going to sink in and show that. And just like Jen said with her wraps, like it just makes it look real. It just makes it look proper. And there's another picture of Jen, obviously a recent troop or a more recent troop. You guys are masked up and socially distancing.
It was for Halloween. And the other cool thing, especially with where you're saying with armor, like this is where you take the blaster point. If you mess up, or like especially with Jakku with the tabards, if there's dye stains, that's weathering. It's not a mess up. It's weathering.
Yep, right. It's battle damage. It's not, you didn't accidentally cut that. It's battle damage.
Oh, fine.
Yeah. And then, you know, it's cool, you know, to see like you go through these projects and you know, I'm really proud of how it looks. I feel like it looks like that. I just learned yesterday that apparently there's a full-size helmet of that at Galaxy's Edge. So once it opens, I need to go back and try to get some high-res photos of it. But it's, you know, it's a fun process. It's a little bit model building. It's a little bit, you know, Halloween. It's a lot of paint. It's a lot of art. Like it's such a multimodal hobby. It's a lot of fun. And then it has other uses. Speaking of Galaxy's Edge, One of the fun things you can do, and anyone can do this, especially if you are going once it opens and is safe back to Disneyland, you can use these techniques for things. So when we went to Galaxy's Edge, I made a phone case that I wanted to look Star Warsy. And so I just bought a cheap plastic one at the mall and literally just glued some things from my garage on it, some pieces of plastic and some washers. And then you paint it. And again, you do that wash, that dirty grime. And then you've got a little data pad. You've got a little device that looks like it's Star Warsy. And the paint has sunk into those cracks and crevices. And it's just another fun way of like sort of bringing that Star Wars universe into our universe. Which is a lot of fun. And this is my Disney bounding. I don't do much else. But some people are very good at it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which.
Because all of these have been okay to wear to Disneyland. Only got one question on the bottom left, which was interesting because you can't fully look like the characters, and then you get to interact with them. So it was kind of cool being like, hey, look, Disney thinks that the tabards, which is what the wrap dress is called, is the same color as the one that I have. So that was really great to have, and the characters will interact with you, and then everybody will take all the pictures with the Falcon, and it's just so much fun. And it's another great way to, like, I just spent $80 or 12 hours making this leather belt. What can I do with it? I'm like, you can wear it at Disneyland. You can wear it to work. I've worn out 2 pairs of Pozu boots because I just wear them all the time. They're comfortable. That's the best part, is everything's comfortable. Everything is, I've worn belts with dresses to work. I've worn the arm brace. And I've done the hair when I just decide to do hair during the day, like I have now. I went to the gym and I had.
There you go. I haven't worn my armor to work. Actually, that's not true. I have worn my armor to work. I don't wear it to work commonly. I wear my helmets to work a lot. And then since we are running out, I want to show everybody, just so everyone watching knows. Yes, there are absolutely armor parties. Stupid things. Yes, let me answer it in just a second for you. For everybody, at the end of this slideshow, there is a QR code that if you scan it with your phone, you can see this whole presentation. So if you want to see an image of one of Jen's amazing Rey costumes, if you want to see, what Ezra's helmet looked like, or you need any of these links, please feel free to check that out. I just want to show them real quick. You can check out Rebel Legion. It's the international group. There's their website. Endor Base has our own website. We have a Facebook. We have Instagram. We have an Instagram too.
We have an Instagram, and then we have a whole new Endor Base website that Lindsay has made, which looks amazing. So that's cool. We have an Instagram. We have Facebook. We have a Twitter. Haven't used it in a while.
Yeah, I don't use our Twitter a whole lot either. But then, and if you need 501st stuff, here's the international 501st stuff. Unfortunately, it's not the same tags for each social media. And then there is the Golden Gate Garrison's individual ones. Like I said, I monitor this one. So if you have questions, or if you need like a Star Wars patch, you go ahead and message this and we'll get you a Star Wars patch. Say we can get it for Endor too. But then if you guys need, there's the QR code. And I would love, there's some questions from people. Yes, that's right. Dark side or light side, come join us. So questions, are there armor parties? There absolutely are. One of the challenges of both of these groups is that there's so many different costumes. It's sort of rare that you find someone making the same costume as you at the same time. So one of the things that we do, like Jen and I have been to parties where there's like sewing parties, and someone's doing Rey, someone's doing a Jedi, someone's making a Royal Guard or something. And then I've been to plenty of parties where there's sort of little sections of, those folks are working on plastic, that person's doing helmets, person inside, he's showing you how to sew, and she's doing the electronics in the garage. Like, there's definitely those events. And so what you do is you get on our social media, get on our website. If you are building a costume, come reach out to us, and we can help you. I just had a guy that was up in the North State, was trying to build a scout, and was like, hey, how do I build a scout trooper? And so I just got one of our scout troopers who's built, a couple scouts, and connected them, and they gave resources. So yeah, totally. There's definitely people to help you, especially with a stormtrooper. Like we've got tons of stormtroopers. We could easily help you feel free to shoot us a message on social media. I can connect you. And yeah, there's good.
And we definitely have people that have taken the armor that, if you've seen it, it's not one size fits all. Sometimes you have to add to it. Sometimes you have to, make it smaller, and they know all the tips and tricks of like using a heat gun and will help you be able to mold it to your body, because like Jason and I would not wear the same size armor.
No, we would not. No, we would
But
not.
we would potentially purchase the same set of armor.
Good. Yeah. And there's definitely times like that. And like I'm a bigger dude. I've had to, make things work for me. And so I've learned a lot of skills in that respect, and always got to help, like help my uncle with his helmets, whatever it takes. Hello, for QZ. Good. Thank you. Good to have you. Other questions, other things we can answer. We got about 5 minutes left.
Well, I mean, I have a question because we talked about it. What do you expect at your first troop? Because I went in completely blind and then stood and took pictures with people. I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, so one of the good things is hopefully when you do start trooping, there's someone from your group that knows you're going to be there. There's definitely been people at troops that I was sort of pinged like, hey, such and such is going to be new today. Will you just keep an eye on them? But you show up at a troop. If it's like a school troop, there's often like a classroom off to the side. Yes, they're not the same. Yeah, very different. Same here, Jim. But there's often like a classroom set aside, usually with some water, and you all sort of help each other get set up. There's usually like an event coordinator who sort of says like, hey, you're going to walk over here and you're going to stand with these kids. You're going to see these folks over here. Looks like we did get a question on Q. Oh, we did. We got a question on the Q&A. I'll get that in a second. It's Dahlia Montgomery. But then you troop, and then hopefully afterwards you get to go out to dinner somewhere. You get to go out and get food somewhere because you're often very hungry.
Very, very hungry.
Dahlia Montgomery wants to know, to you, Jen, what's your favorite troop?
Oh my gosh, what is my favorite? Like, it's so weird to think about that because my favorite troops and then what they are, because I actually really like it's the Fantasy Flight Cops Care, because it's basically all these kids that have some kind of disease. It's never, if they're all like in need, and they get a cavalcade in. So some of them come in like the Selena SWAT cars, or like a full like bus, or police and Santa helicopters in, and there's all these different things, and the kids enter on a red carpet and you're just cheering them on and like waving, and they get to see Santa. Like, that is one of my favorite troops. I mean, the San Francisco Giants were really cool last year because I got to wave to Kathleen Kennedy and Ray.
Nice. That's cool. We got a couple others. Family friendly organization. So like any group, right? It's a very large group. And so there's definitely families and there's definitely kids that are at these events. One of the really nice things about this group is because we are in the public eye, we have to maintain professional and appropriate standards. So people they're going to be responsible. We're going to be safe. We got to be trusted. But yeah, lots of good kids around. There's a really good group of young members of our groups. Yeah, absolutely good group. And then you don't have to buy a round on your first troop. I usually not necessarily around because we don't know what we're eating or drinking. But I've definitely bought a bite to eat or something for new troopers afterwards, and helped congratulate and celebrate with them because it's such an accomplishment to start doing this.
And you will probably also get gifted a coin because we have knowledge coins. I don't have any of mine near me, and I just jinxed myself.
I have one. I have one that's got Mara Jade, got my favorite character on it. Yeah, you get little coins, or you get patches.
Or you get patches. They do.
Oh, the patches are great. Yeah, patches are awesome. What else? Other questions? We got like 2 minutes left. While we're waiting on those, Dahlia Montgomery, thanks for asking, Dahlia. I'm sure, Mateo, if you want to type your question in.
Yeah, I mean, but what's your favorite troop?
My favorite troop, so it's really small. My favorite troop is every December. There is, thank you, Jim. There's an open house at a place called Next Door Solutions to Domestic Violence. You've trooped there with me a few times. And they do this amazing open house for the families that they serve. And last year, I played checkers in my full armor with a kid, and he did really well, which was really, I'm not very good at checkers, but he did really well. And it's just an amazing place to go, and an amazing group of families. And like, I know the people that work there, and like, I've helped them at school and stuff, with volunteers. And so that's my favorite troop every year. Absolutely. What else? Other questions? But Jim, if you start trooping, on me, dude. You remind me of this. I'll buy you a round of any sort of appropriate beverage.
French fries.
Oh,
yeah.
yes, there are.
So
well, Jen, yeah, you're in a leadership position.
I am basically the president of Endor Base. So it's called Base Commanding Officer. There's a Garrison Commanding Officer, and that's for every base and garrison has one. There's the executive officer, a membership officer, and PR, which is what Jason is. And then there's charity officers, there's merchandise officers, and then you also have at the Legion level, you have the Legion commanding officers, and same way down from there. As I said, I'm now also in a Legion level position, so I'm kind of like, I'm on the Legion Council, which helps decide things and like works with
I think we're done.
Creating new committees and sometimes getting put on new committees without knowing it, or just trying to come up with new ways for the different legions to do things while we're all in quarantine. So coming up with virtual troops for the entire legion, running things like the 501st quiz show, or they had Rebelathon, where it was like 24 hours of content and raising money for UNICEF. So
yeah, lots of big, huge group.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It was so much fun. You guys gave so much great information. We're going to bounce right over to Mai is going to be drawing the Library Comic-Con Hedgehog and the child himself from The Mandalorian. So meet us there if you'd like to see. I'm literally going to bounce right over to that panel. But thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Let us know if you have questions. Hit us on social media. We'll see you out there trooping.
See ya.